So you want to be a knife maker? You better buckle up. Hey everyone, Caleb here. Welcome back to the channel. Thanks for stopping by. I know it's been a while, and I know I have in fact pulled all of my other videos. I'm going to address those questions you may have in this video coming up very shortly, as well as where we may go from here. I do want to continue in the future putting out more content for knife makers and craftsmen in general. So I'm going to do that, but maybe not in the old format that I used to. Might have to seek out some new things, and I'll explain all that coming up. Today, I'm going to talk about what it takes to be a maker. So somewhere along the way, you got it in your head that you wanted to be a knife maker or a craftsman or an artist of some kind. Today we're going to discuss that. What does it actually take to be a craftsman, an artist, a knife maker? This is a question I get regularly, and I get asked regularly, is it worth it? Most recently on Instagram, I was asked by somebody who follows me, and I follow them. I think Rothman is the name. What is it to be a full-time maker? Is it worth it? Along those lines, that question. So what does it actually take to do that? There are a considerable amount, and this is just a discussion topic, there are a considerable amount of risks involved with being an artist or a craftsman. One, you have to be good at what you're doing. You have to develop a skill or craft that people want, that you may, or an art form that people may want, need, or use. It needs to solve a problem. It needs to make people happy. It needs to be an enjoyable thing for both them and you. Some of you may be gifted towards something. Some of you may have just gravitated towards something like knife making. I didn't grow up as artistically as a knife maker. I knew people who were craftsmen growing up, my grandfather and stuff. But it wasn't anything I originally had planned to do as a child. I wanted to be an artist. I wanted to be a comic book artist, an illustrator. But as I grew older and when I went in the Air Force and spent some time there, I kind of drifted away from that. I never stopped drawing and I never stopped creating art, but I kind of drifted away from that as a career, thinking in the future I really didn't know what I wanted to do until I was introduced to knife making by a supervisor that I had. And after that, after I saw the craft of knife making, I was all in for it. I knew that was the way I wanted to go. So for me, I kind of fell into that path, but I didn't start there. As an actual full-time maker, though, for 6 years now, I've learned some pretty profound lessons on, no, it's been 7 years. Yeah, 7 years now. Trying to do this all in one take. It's not working. So I've been making full-time for about 6 years now. I started in 2016. So yeah, I started full-time making for 6 years. I've been making knives for about 12 years. What it kind of taught me along the way, what I learned before I ever went full-time, is at first you have to learn your craft. You have to learn how to be good at it. You have to learn how to make whatever you're going to make. Knife making for me was the thing. You have to make it well. You have to make it appealing. You have to make it attractive. You have to work out your design styles. You have to work out your philosophy of categories that you're going to serve. What kind of knives are you going to make? You got to figure that out. And then you got to learn actually how to make them. So the biggest commitment to get in your head as a craftsman, artist, or a burgeoning or aspiring one, you have to commit yourself to learning this craft first, whatever it is. Learn it. There's too much of this, start making stuff and then still throw it out on Instagram, get social media famous, and you're made it, you're set mentality out there. That's not real. It's not reality. It doesn't last for people, and it won't last because there's no foundation to it. So building your foundation, step one. If you want to be a maker, you have to build your foundation. So what is your foundation? The foundation of any craft is skill, knowledge, understanding, and the ability to repeat it. So if you can develop the skill, the knowledge, and the understanding of your craft, whatever it is, knife making or whatever, and you can repeat that, you can create the artwork, the product, the knife, the pipe. I've been following a lot of pipe makers recently and learning this art as well. I've got years to go before I have come close to being proficient at it, but it's a foundation. You lay the foundation and spend the time, commit your time, your energy towards the years it's going to take to lay that foundation. Once you have your foundation, then you can start thinking about where you want to go with it. Hobbyist, amateur, craftsman, full-time, whatever. First, you need the foundation. I can't stress it enough, if you don't have a solid foundation in the actual art of knife making, or the art of, or craft of whatever it is you're doing, it will show through your work very quickly. And if you try to jump in as a full-time maker, you may fall flat on your face. And you have to delineate between full-time maker versus hobbyist or amateur, or just practitioner, somebody who enjoys it. But if you're going to go full-time, meaning this is your job, this is what you get your income from, you have to have a solid foundation. All right, the second part I would say you need to consider very heavily is the risks. The risks involved. Going and depending on something that is a very niche, knife making specifically, is a very niche part of society. It's a very niche craft. It's a very niche market, and it's not very big. So you're going to be trying to throw your lot in a small market where the margins of profit are not very high. And you're going to be trying to make your full-time living off of that. That's the big risk you're taking, especially if your quality of craftsmanship's not there. It's an even bigger risk. But if you laid your foundation right, you can mitigate that risk a little bit. Like most families, my wife works. Like most families in the U.S., have two incomes. Between the two of us, we make it work. If you can balance that, what you can potentially make with knife making, then it works. It works great. You have to understand that the first few years of doing it full time, the risks and the expenditure far outweigh anything you're going to get back from it. It does, big time. You're never going to get your time back. And the money you spend on it is huge up front. It's not a cheap craft. It's very expensive. So that's the biggest part of the risk, the financial aspects of it and the stability aspects. I mean, when you talk about 401k, when you talk about Social Security, when you talk about taxes and all those things, those are all on you. There's no business or no entity paying that for you. That's on you, no one else. So you have to weigh that risk. And that kind of leads me to my third point, the cost. The cost with knife making is actually really big. Equipment, just to get a basic shop up and running, the equipment set up for a grinder, drill press, some kind of buffing machine or something along those lines, maybe some woodworking tools, and your basic just hand tools, that can be pretty big. I mean, you're looking at about $4 or $5 grand easy just to get started. And then you have your material costs as well on top of that, buying your hand material, buying your blade steel, blade stock, buying your fittings material, buying your bolts and your hardware and whatever various things you've developed along your craft. And if you approach it from the beginning as a start small, end big philosophy, like build your shop a little at a time while you're laying your foundation before you ever go full time, and it helps to mitigate that a lot. But the costs themselves are considerable throughout the year. I mean, just your abrasives alone, like belts, sandpaper, and steel, that's going to be most of your income for the first few years until you work your profit margins get wider and your craft gets more accepted, and you kind of establish yourself as a maker. And that leads me to point 4, your market. You have to establish a market for yourself. You have to find a market, and you have to create it in a lot of ways. You're going to create your own market, and you have to do something that is marketable and desirable to a large enough portion of the population at a cost that they can afford. Okay, so your pricing, and I won't cover pricing in depth in this video, but pricing, you can get way out in the weeds really quick and put yourself out of business, or you can shoot way too low and never make any money. So you have to find the market that is a good balance of the style and type of knives you like to make, the craft and the foundation you've laid, and what you're good at, where you know your strengths and weaknesses are, and how you can market it to the crowd that's going to buy it potentially, and put it at a price point that they can swallow easily. Maybe not all of them. I mean, if you don't work if they're not your market, they're not your market. Don't go chasing that. But find your market, find your niche, and stick to that, and work your way into it. And then you can marginally start to increase your prices, and it becomes a profitable craft for you. It takes a lot of years though. It's going to take you, on average, any business takes 3 to 5 years to get off the ground. But while you're still in the red, you're not even coming close to profit. You're in the red, and you're in debt, and you got debt build up. I would say, with this craft specifically, with your materials and tools, don't go into debt to get them. Buy them, save up, and get them a little bit at a time, especially if you have a job already. Give yourself time to get there. I mean, 5 to 7 years of laying your foundation before you ever go full time is not an unreasonable thing to say. So you need to commit yourself to that, at least, to lay your foundation before you ever even start thinking about going full time. If you go full time too quickly, you may fail. You may have a lot of false starts. You may do really well at a show and spend all your money going to that show, and then nobody buys anything from you for a year. That's happened to me. And I wasn't going full time at the time, but I was trying to. I was giving it a soft trial to see if it would even work. I was actually in school still at the time. So you need to approach it very wisely, but approach it with a lot of patience. You know, understanding that you got to find your market, you got to find your niche, and you got to start selling in that market and establish yourself and get a big enough crowd of people wanting your stuff in that category that they can afford, to where you then you can really start to find a rhythm and a groove, and then you can start to grow after that. My last point is the reward. And this is a philosophical point more than anything. What does it take to be a knife maker? It takes the commitment of time. It takes the commitment of passion, purpose. It takes the commitment of drive. You have to have drive. You have to be willing to slug it out through the years that suck. Your making styles, your skills, your craftsmanship, it's not what you think it is at the beginning. Just because you made your granny a knife, or your best friend, and they're like, "Oh, you're making it, dude. You're the best in the world. You're the guy. You're the guy." They're supporting and encouraging you, and they love you. But that doesn't mean you're a good maker. There's so many makers I see come out of the gates, and they hit that Instagram fame real quick, or that social media fame real quick, because they put good photographs up of some kitschy crap. And then you realize 5 years later, nobody wants your stuff anymore because it's not that good. You're not that skillful of a craftsman. Give yourself that first. Give yourself the gift of developing your style, your craft, as a professional first. Give yourself the gift and the time to do that as a professional. And then the reward of getting to do it full time is worth it. Totally worth it. Everything. Every ounce of sweat I've put into this, every penny I've put into it, and every amount of time and frustration I've put into it over the last 12 years has been worth it. It's definitely been worth it. It gives you freedom. It gives you creativity in your life. It gives you it gives you freedom to express what you want. It gives you something cool to do, to build for people. It may never make you rich, though. But if you can understand all of those things and start off that way, with that mentality and just longevity, long term, and come at it in a reasonable approach, then it's totally a doable thing, being a full-time knife maker or being a full-time craftsman of any kind. So I hope this encourages some of you out there. I will have more updates in the future about the series of videos I would like to produce, what platform I'll be using, where I'll be putting them out. All of that will come through here first. Whether or not I do stick with YouTube is maybe not. We'll see. But I did pull everything for now, just for the time being. Thank you for joining me again. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, click the notification button, all that good stuff. Otherwise, the algorithms don't let us get anywhere with our videos anymore. So thank you again.